Yo, what is happening with you guys? Happy hump day. Just saw I opened Twitter, or X or whatever you want to call it, and I saw that our boys at Loreforged met for the first time in 10 years and are heading to the Smoky Mountains. I don't know if it's like the Rocky Mountains or if it's another, like, because I know it was at the Appalachian Mountains and the Rocky Mountains. So I saw that and I was like, oh, that's pretty freaking cool. Shout out to them. I hope they're having a great time and they're safe while driving. If you saw their pic on X, I thought it was pretty funny. What is up with my camera? Better? Okay. Yeah, so there was some stuff that happened. Well, I wouldn't really call it that. But there was a particular topic that they wanted some feedback on, right? It says, stop right there. Let's talk about crowd control. Should everybody be able to break free from CCs? Well, so I'm just going to start off with this and then we'll go into some of the React content. So this is my hot take. My take is I don't think every class should have a CC. I think when it comes to, because once you start getting into the conversation where every single class has a CC, then you start having that conversation about, well, every class should need to be able to break the CC. And that slippery slope of conversation slowly turns into homogenization. And I don't want Ashes to fall in that route for PvP. I think there should be some classes that have a sense of slow, right? This class slows, right? But we also really haven't gotten to the conversation about stuns. I am not a fan of stun mechanics whatsoever. I think they are very low IQ kinds of things. I think, again, like I'm talking like 3 second, 5 second stuns. I think those are atrocious. No one likes being CC'd for that long. It's not saying that it doesn't require any kind of skill, because of course a properly timed CC does require skill, but I think a skill in you having nothing to get out of doesn't really serve anything towards that player. You see someone does care for rogues. Well, and again, if you've notoriously played World of Warcraft, right? Rogues have had some serious CC capabilities with like basically just incapacitates, whether it's a stun, whether it's a sap, like you basically just having zero control of your character. And I think, again, I was looking on Facebook actually, and there was people that were saying, well, should every class be able to break through some CCs? And people are like, absolutely, like every class should have, like, and again, I think it's because we also live in this mindset of today's MMOs where every MMO is homogenized. So players are very much used to having everything at their disposal for every situation. But that's not how MMOs were back in the day. You didn't have every single tool in your tool belt for every situation. What you needed for that was the class. Every class had its own separate tool set. And in order to combat a certain mechanic or a certain CC, you needed another class to help you in that situation. But now we've gotten down to basically the solo player or the single player mindset of, well, I don't want to bring anybody. I'm an antisocial player, so I want a button for any situation that someone else puts me into. And there you have our today's MMOs of PvP. And this is why I think PvP also, in a sense, is very atrocious. And why I think a lot of PvP scenarios like World of Warcraft are just dead. Like the PvP scene is just really, really, really bad. Swotor, let everyone have CC breaks in the class. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's not a WoW problem. It's a theme park MMO problem. And the reason why the reason why that is the case is because developers of like all the developers I've just tried to copy pasta WoW's model. So therefore, that's why this homogenization is just rampant across classes. And this is the other issue that I've also said, is that because of that, players have gotten used to this level of power. This is not a last year's problem. This wasn't like they added CC for every class last year. This isn't a 5-year problem either. This is almost like 12 years. Probably like when I started to remember the homogenization getting super out of hand was during Wrath of the Lich King for WoW. Wrath of the Lich King was 2008. 2008. So let me see. Killer Instinct Combo Breaker was fun as fuck. Oh, dude, yeah. Like, I mean, kind of going on a tangent of Killer Instinct. I freaking loved Killer Instinct. I played Diego and Orchid and Cinder. Glacius was also really cool too. Let me see. Guild Wars 2 as well. Yeah, like I said, this isn't a specific MMO problem. This is a rampant theme park MMO problem. And because of that, not just of the WoW community or the Guild Wars 2 community or SWTOR's community, it's the MMO community at large that is going to expect a game like Ashes of Creation to kind of be the same. Like they want the same, it's not the same, they want the same theme park experience, but when they're not going to get it, they're going to be like, oh, well, this is weird. Like, why would this class feel so weak? You know? Like, wow, all you can do is single target on this boss, like, or all you can do is single target on this class. Like, it sucks in AoE, or you can't even CC on it. Like, why would anyone play this class? It's because, well, when it comes to single target, they're single-handedly the best class in the game. And again, that's how a lot of stuff was back then. And I don't know if Ashes of Creation is going to go to that level again, but we're talking about crowd control. And crowd control, especially in this day and age, if any Intrepid member were to go and start looking at videos or go look at the communities of PvP across various MMOs, it's quite terrible. It's really, really quite terrible. Do you think the PvP system is going to be a problem in the early game? I think the PvP system is going to be a problem in early Alpha 2, but I really, truly hope, because of the long, like the years that we have to develop Alpha 2 and to develop Ashes of Creation in general, I really hope by the time the launch of Ashes happens, PvP is in a relatively good spot, but also the classes each have their own kind of separate identity into what they are going to focus on, right? Like if warriors are kind of like AoE machines and they have like a slow, right, as an example, that's going to be, in Ashes of Creation's world, that could be very powerful in AoE situations, especially we're talking large siege battles. Like that's going to be really, really, really insane. But again, it's because players are going to look at this from the WoW model or from this other model, you know, Guild Wars 2, SWTOR, and they're like, I don't know if I like this game, because in WoW, I can have a build where I'm really good in single target, I'm really good in AoE, I'm really good in this, and then I come to Ashes and I can't do any of that. Like, and again, I'm making that as an example. I'm kind of straying off of the PvP thing, but I'm just trying to relay to you guys the level of power that players have been given for a long period of time. Again, this isn't a last year's problem, 5 years problem, or even 10-year problem. This has been a cinematic symptom in MMOs for over a decade. And to just relinquish that power from players is going to be awful. It is. Like, no one likes feeling nerfed. No one likes playing a warrior, you know, in SWTOR or in World of Warcraft or in Final Fantasy 14 or Guild Wars 2, and they come into Ashes and a warrior just does not feel as powerful. But it is. And it should be. It should be less powerful, because I think the rampant homogenization of classes where every single class has a heal, has a defensive, has a CC, has a CC break, has, major cooldowns. Like it gets too ridiculous, and you can't truly balance that. And again, Ashes of Creation, I mean, we all know here in chat, right? Ashes of Creation isn't a game that's meant to be balanced at a 1v1 level. But if it is truly balanced around the group level, then that should mean that classes should excel in certain CC, and there should be certain classes that shouldn't have a CC break at all. That's not their area of expertise, right? So I think Intrepid needs to have the conversation of which classes should have a form of CC and which classes, you know, should not have any kind of form of a CC break, right? Because I think it has to be a trade-off. I think if you're going to have a class that has a CC, then they shouldn't have a CC break. But if a class has a CC break, then in my opinion, they shouldn't have a CC. I don't know if that's a hot take for people, but I again, this is where I think the real conversations should happen, right? Because again, you look at PvP across the board for a lot of different MMOs, and I think that's a problem because all of the PvP communities are dying. All of the major people that are like main, I'm talking from my community, World of Warcraft, all of the mainstay PvP players aren't PvPing. That's a problem. And again, WoW has had a hard time with trying to balance PvE and PvP, especially in their talent trees. Let me see, even outside of MMOs, CCs are insane. Yes, they are. They're completely out of control. If you can CC, you shouldn't be able to CC break. Be interesting to see that play out. Well, and again, it's because again, you're doing something to a player that you shouldn't be able to do to yourself, right? Like, maybe that doesn't make sense. All I'm saying is that having a CC is a powerful button, right? CC is a powerful tool when it comes to controlling a player, whether that's their movement speed, you know, all this other stuff, right? And so I think, again, players for too long have been too powerful. And what Ashes of Creation kind of needs to do is depower the singular class comparatively to the theme park MMO classes. The theme park MMO classes have been way too strong for way too long. And in order for a class to truly feel needed, not just in PvP, but in the game in general, you need to feel weak in areas. Because in the areas you are weak, another class is really strong. And by you kind of feeling the yin and yang is going to really be a call to action for grouping. And this is a game where I truly feel grouping needs to be incentivized. Grouping needs to feel, I wouldn't really say mandatory, but it needs to feel like I feel incomplete without a bard. I feel incomplete without a mage. I feel incomplete without a rogue. Right, depending on whatever main class you have. And I think that's a good thing. I really do. I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good problem to have. If we're all truly wanting this kind of older, you know, old school MMO mentality, that's what it's about. Strengths and weaknesses. Like, dude, we were having a talk in our raid group, right? Because I'm currently raiding right now in WoW with some buddies. I'm sure you recognize them. My buddy Royer, Lude Lloyd, Curian, Wagsy. He's usually in chat as well. And, you know, I'm playing a Ret Paladin. And currently, you know, in the tier list of DPS classes, I am like a D rank, you know, class, like Ret Paladin is. But yet, if you look in raid, we're pretty much like dominating. Like, we're doing very, very well. And I'm like, guys, don't let the D class, you know, the tier D class beat you guys, you know? Because again, in WoW's terms, you look at this spreadsheet and people put so much validity into it that if they think they play a D class, like a tier D class, that I'm just gonna suck. And that's really not the case. It really isn't. And so I think, again, when it comes to Ashes of Creation, Intrepid really needs to take a good look. And again, I know we've seen abilities on the fighter, on other classes that has like multiple forms of CCs. But again, this is all subject to change. I don't take any of that as like gospel, that just because we saw an ability on this class that has this CC, well, it's going to be in there at launch. No, it could be thrown out completely. Like, I mean, again, we haven't seen Prismatic Beam. Prismatic Beam was an alpha 1, but maybe Intrepid thought, like, hey, you know, we tried this ability out. We're not digging it. We're just going to throw it out the window. They can do the same thing with CC. Or they can just rearrange the CC and say, hey, we think the fighter has too much CC. We're going to put one of these abilities on the rogue instead, or on the tank. And we're just going to plop it from this class to the other class. And now the fighter has one less CC, or, you know, whatever the case is. Like, I think people really needed to just kind of transform their mindset into, you know, everything should be on the table for changing, manipulating, getting rid of, adding something new to the table. That's what tests are all about. Let me see. I just got back. What did I do? We're just talking about how paladins, rep paladins in WoW are D tier, and how people put so much validity into those tier lists. Most toxic ability manageable is to just click and hard CC a player. Exactly. I am not a fan of I hit a button and you're stunned for 3 to 5 seconds. I think that's the most shit ability ever invented. Like, I think if you are going to have any kind of a stun, it should be like 0.5 seconds or like a second, like 0.5 to 1 second. And I think, again, not saying that a stun isn't like, if you were to be a PvP player and understand, like, I need this kind of player shut down for at least 1 second to get a chain off, or have my friend like move, like, you know, break LOS. 1 second is a lot of time in PvP. It really is. But that's not really what most of the case is, right? It's these long stuns. Let me see, I have a question. Have you been providing Intrepid feedback on this? Well, that's what I'm doing. That's literally what I'm doing right now. Like, I am providing, you know, I know Planadorf, Nathan, Corey, other developers watch my stream. So that's why I wanted to discuss this first, because this is something they are, you know, wanting feedback on, and I'm giving my feedback by talking about it. I think it's very important. I really want PvP and Ashes to be as meaningful as we, the content creators, and even the community has said, right? We have this kind of fantasy of what we hope from PvP, but the reality could be quite different. And what I don't want in general is the state of where current PvP is in most other theme park games, because all of those communities are dead. They're all severely dead. They're not thriving. And in my opinion, the reason why they're not thriving is because of homogenization. Homogenization is way too rampant. Every class has everything. It's too much. In Ashes, we need to restrain. That's what we need. We need classes to feel weak in certain areas in order to bring in another class. Because if we just have the WoW model or the theme park model, why would you need to bring a rogue? Why would you need to bring a mage? Fighter can do everything. The fighter can CC break, has a major CD, has a defensive, has a heal, has, you know, movement abilities. Why would I need to bring any other class? And that's literally the kind of class design that I don't want. I don't want to have that at all in Ashes of Creation. I will take a hard CC if I have a way to counter it, like I can dodge the ability or have some way to block the CC status. Well, of course, like it's to me, I think the real conversation is about give and take, right? If a class has a certain CC, then we need to look into the idea of only classes having maybe one form of CC. Because then what inevitably is going to happen is that the real skill is going to come in the combat, not in everyone just stacking everyone's CC on one player. Again, we also have to take into conversation, if this is a group gameplay, this is large siege battles that people are going to be in Discord for. They're going to have shock callers. Think about every class having a CC. Think about that. Then we have to start having conversations on diminishing returns, right? And I think, again, you're going to be able to lock a person out completely. And who's going to have fun doing that? Of course, the people doing it, but the person who's getting done to isn't going to have any fun. And I think as soon as that keeps happening, fewer and fewer people are either going to engage less in PvP, but because PvP is so intrinsic to Ashes of Creation, that just in turn may cause people just to quit. Because they quit PvP in World of Warcraft. They've quit PvP in other MMOs currently out. I don't want to speak for other communities. I just know in WoW, PvP is pretty much like at the deadest period it should be. So yeah, it's terrible. And I don't want Ashes to fall into that. I want Ashes to have its own flavor, because in so many regards, it already does. It has a lot of different flavor to it. Let me see. What I don't want to see in Ashes PvP is massive AoE fests. Well, that's a whole other separate conversation, but I do agree with you. I think AoE is another topic that I think they did ask feedback for. But yes, I mean, in most, you know, and this is why I said the conversation, like for a rogue, in my opinion, should excel in single target. And they should have maybe one AoE that is mediocre at best. Because their job isn't to AoE. That could be the mage. The mage, as an example, could really excel in AoE, but their single target is kind of meh, right? So the only ones truly AoEing is going to be the mages. But then we have to start talking about, well, what if a group of 40 mages shows up? Well, then it's going to be an AoE fest. Like, you're not going to be able to stop players from gaming the game. That's what players are going to do. What pisses people off is people experiencing / losing to bugs. The second thing is poor balancing. Well, bugs, yes, 100%. I completely agree with that. Poor balancing, bugs can be squashed and fixed. Poor balancing, that is subjective. Because in my opinion, there could be things that I think are very poor balanced, but Intrepid thinks, well, no, like it's actually, in our opinion, it's actually like good. It's balanced the way we like it. Right? Because again, we're always going to advocate to be more powerful as gamers, as players. Should be able to see what the classes have for CC and Alpha 2 guide write up. Yeah, I think so too. Like, and again, I think they did write up a whole list of all their abilities, but I think again, I wouldn't take validity into those abilities staying to the launch of Ashes of Creation. I think certain abilities can be thrown out completely, could be radically changed from from what it was at the start of Alpha 2 to what it is at the end of Alpha 2 could be a whole different ability, right? And so I think when it comes to that conversation, I just would implore people to not take every single thing that you see as gospel. We've heard Steven say this so many times, that anything and everything that you see is subject to change. That includes classes, that includes abilities, and that could include some philosophies too, because the philosophy on CC, Intrepid could have a different philosophy than what I'm describing to you guys. I hope not, but they could. And it's because of the conversation that I'm having with you guys right now, the conversations that could be happening in the forums, on Reddit or whatever. It's those kinds of things that could potentially change Intrepid's mind if they have a different philosophy. Who knows? Anyone feels a bit disappointed with how one-dimensional the archetype skill set they presented feel. I feel like clerics and especially Bard are going to end up as a heal buff bot. Well, again, you look at old school design. Old school design is very one-dimensional. I made the argument just a little while ago how if a rogue excels in single target but nothing else, that's super one-dimensional. Like, it is. Like, having a rogue just excel in single target and they can't really cleave, they can't AoE at all, that's pretty one-dimensional in the sense of like dealing damage. But I think, again, what I kind of want to be multi-dimensional is performing and executing the abilities in the single target rotation and how fun or rewarding that rotation can be. What I want really multi-dimensional is combat, is the moment-to-moment, ability-to-ability gameplay. That is what I want to feel as multi-dimensional. Buff stacking, debuff stacking, like what I'm doing to me. I need to hit this ability in concession with this ability to then execute this ability. And then I'm going to disengage and I'm going to hit a couple of basic attacks to do this weapon combo that's going to unleash this next ability. That's what I want. That's what I want to truly feel multi-dimensional. But again, the reason why I think certain classes need to kind of feel very single dimensional, because that's how you're going to bring in these other classes. This is how the group balance is approached. Because if everybody's going to feel multifaceted in the sense of damage dealing, well, then we kind of really don't have a balance there, do we? Right? Now we have to start balancing at a singular class level, and that's not something Intrepid has said they wanted to do. They want to balance at the group level, which means certain classes are going to be very single dimensional. Let me see. Rogues should be single targeted status effects, so you bring a class that can spread out the AoE status effects. Exactly. Now you're speaking the language. Arcane Adam, dude, thank you so much for the follow, dude. Thank you. If number your talent points you can spend abilities is limited, you might be forced to specialize into specific skills, play styles like AoE single target if you are after optimizing your character. Dude, that's another really good point. Is when I say the rogue is a single target like player, right? That could also predicate off of your talent choices from your talent trees, off of your weapon tree, right? So when people are making guides or whatever, there could be several abilities or certain chains that you can do that makes the rogue very good in single target. However, there are abilities you can select that are AoE in nature, but they're not really going to be like, you're not going to be an AoE powerhouse as a rogue, right? Even if you pick all of the right choices in your AoE kit, right? Like, because again, Intrepid just wants to say, well, we want to give you some options for AoE, but that's not really what you're going to excel in. Your bread and butter is going to be single target. And that's fine. Like, I think, again, it's all about what you as the player want to customize your class as. I think that's very important to identity. That's very important to you keeping to your character, feeling bound and thinking like you made your own class kind of thing. I think it's very, very important to have. Like rogues put a poison in a bard has a ability to spread status effects. Yes. Now Steven, distant, like taking away player agency. Let me see. Steven doesn't like taking away player agency. It just depends on what we're talking about when it comes to player agency. I think most people take that approach and think it's just overall, right? And I think there has to be some player agency that you kind of don't have any control over by the class you picked. You know, by picking this class, you will have agency, but not as much as you think you are. That's what I kind of think. I'm okay with single dimensional archetypes. Some people just enjoy being healers only. Exactly. Like, again, healing is very one dimensional, right? Like, all I'm doing is healing, you know, but you can, again, healing can be multi-dimensional because are you doing very good single target heals? Are you like an AoE group machine heal? Are you like spreading hots all over the place and excelling in hot healing? Like there's a lot that you could be doing. You can excel in life leech, you know, or something like that, right? By all the damage you're doing is actually healing in a certain radius to your melee players. That could be something you want to do as well. I think all of those are very multidimensional. The best part of the multidimensional will be the synergy between classes. I hit this skill when my party member hits that skill. Exactly. I think, and we kind of saw this back in the it wasn't the midnight magic. It was when they were in the graveyard killing the skeletons. And I think Steven was showing the cleric for the very first time. And they were talking about, I think it was like some of the combat designers were talking about, well, if the cleric does this thing and I see this particular ability the cleric's doing, if I hit my CC, now it adds like a stun to it because I can't produce a stun on my own. But if a cleric goes with me, I hit my CC and now it transforms into a stun. I think that's fine. In order for a stun to happen, you need two people. That's fine. But again, the stun should not be a very long stun. I think the stun should be maybe like one second at most, in my opinion. I think 2 seconds is kind of pushing it for me. I think like 0.5 to 1 second is totally acceptable. Having one-dimensional playstyle healing as a cleric should not be mutually exclusive with being able to customize your cleric to provide different playstyles that would provide more depth and longevity. No, absolutely. I completely 1000% agree with you. That's the fear that I have currently with the tank and the cleric, is that there's basically one style of gameplay for it. And I think that would be really terrible. Yes, that's where hard CC should stay for most classes. Yes. Like in the, but the reason why, again, I'm okay with it because it takes that skill to understand that once I see the cleric do the thing, then I do my thing, right? But you also have to take into consideration too that this is supposed to be a group-based game with a whole bunch of people. And I still don't want those stuns to be long, even in that situation as well. Because I just think hard stuns like that are just terrible. Like I don't find them fun. I think losing complete control of your character just isn't a fun thing. I have nothing to do. I just take it and eat it. Like, come on, that's pretty terrible in my eyes. Let me see. I'm on the fence about CC. I think most classes are being able to apply slows is fine. Hard CC like roots and stuns are pretty mandatory. But from a PvP standpoint, if everyone can do it, it just feels like you can never mood, which is incredibly unfun. See? And this is again why I think, well, I don't even think, I really hope that CC like that is super limited. Not every class should be able to do it. Like, again, I think if you're going to have a person that provides a CC, then you don't have a CC breaker. I think you should have a move, like a CC, like if a class has a CC breaker, they should have a movement skill, right? Because the other class has a CC. So to me, it's that kind of a give and take, right? Like if I was a designer designing the Combat of Ashes, like you have to be kind of strategic in what classes are going to have these movement skill abilities, what are going to have the CCs, who's going to have the CC breaks, because you kind of need the synergism between these classes. And there's going to be some classes with a strength above others and a weakness against others. And that's truly the point. Weaknesses need to be present. They need to be. It's mandatory that weakness is key. Let me see. CC trinkets or some form of CC break is infinitely helpful in games like this where there are so many people around. As long as it adds to the skill ceiling, I'm a big fan. Pixel perfect cleanses are a thing of beauty to watch. I think that's more from a healer standpoint. And I do agree. Like I love debuffs. I love buffs. But again, in a game like this where you can potentially have over 100 players on your, on your screen, hard CC like that would just be atrocious. It would be a death nail, in my opinion, in Ashes. Like if a class can just hit a button and people are stunned for a certain amount of seconds, like I think that's too much. That's too powerful in a game like Ashes. Like way too powerful. Sinnergasm. Oh my god. I think every class should either have CC break or a way to block CC. Yes. Again, you're describing give and take, and I am totally on with that. I think CC break and immunity like ESO should be an industry standard. It just depends. In my opinion, I think it just depends. Like I don't think every class needs to have a CC break and a CC. I think that's kind of ridiculous. I assume you're talking about AOC alpha experience. Good to know. Still would like slightly wider variety. Think wide ideas like melee based cleric, melee mage, or greatsword wielding necromancer in heavy armor. Yeah, and I think we are going to have a lot of that too. I really do. Kyrian and I are both healers, but we do extremely different things. He is an AoE healing with a lot of overheal, and I focus on HPS throughput. I am a spot healer with a lot of raid utility and capable of saving someone from the brink of death. You need both to keep the raid alive. Absolutely. And again, this is the synergism. This is why the cleric needs to have those different play styles, because it's like, well, okay, I know you're a cleric, I know you're a healer, but what are you doing? Like, are you throughput? Are you hot healing? Are you focusing on tanks? Are you focusing on the raid? Are you, are you AoE healing? Like, what are you doing? Right? Like, and all of those different play styles and all of those abilities need to be present in the kit, right? I think the two biggest kits, in my opinion, that Ashes of Creation needs to have, I think the most amount of abilities, because I think Steven always described classes having 31 to 40 abilities. I think the classes that should have 40 abilities max is the cleric and the tank. They need to have the most amount of different playstyle options possible in order to succeed with their 64 class system. Like that to me is a mandatory thing. I like the idea of hybridization for of class roles where the gameplay variety can come from. Sadly, like a pipe dream, but we shall see. We shall see. Like, I don't know. Like I am more like, I just want to wait. We're so close to Alpha 2, guys. Like, you know, happy October. Like, we're what, 23 days away from Alpha 2? Like, that's kind of a wild thing. So let's go, now that we've talked about all of the,
major thing,
all of the things, about CC, I want to start watching, our boy, Burns, because he just released, I have 2 videos I got to watch from Burns. I got to watch the latest Bespoke, and the Ashes of Creation has already stopped RMT Apocalypse. I got to watch that. So that's what we're going to do right now, because, I love me some Bespoke, and I do love me some of his content. So we're going to watch this video first. So let's go. Ooh. Destroyer of MMOs. RMT.
There is one major thing that concerns me with Ashes.
Intrepid has hired PhDs in economics.
From day one.
Literally from day one.
Could ruin the end game, the sense of progression, and the economy.
Immediate and automatic, bans.
The ability to buy gold will be there.
Honeypots. These are alluring things which spring a trap when messed with.
Ashes of Creation could potentially solve one of the biggest problems plaguing MMOs for decades.
The Lazy Peon made a video about a very real concern which, if left unchecked, would destroy
Oh, he's growing the beard out.
of Ashes of Creation. The good news, Intrepid's already planned for this, and they have several systems in place to stop it.
Maybe raise it up a little bit.
Real money trading, or RMTing, is when you go to a third-party website, pay real-life money, then someone meets you in-game to trade you gold. It used to be a big problem in other MMOs. It would turn game economies upside down. It was commonplace in New World to swipe. You get your gold, buy some fancy gear, then go compete in the wars with it. It still happens in games like World of Warcraft, but it doesn't matter as much there. The best gear is locked behind raids and becomes soulbound so you can't trade or sell it. The design of WoW makes it so everyone can have everything if they put in the time. WoW isn't...
Well, it's still a problem in WoW. Like, RMT is still very much... Like, if they were to actually start banning people for RMT and just relied off of the WoW token alone, the economy would actually be very, very different. So it's like, I understand because you see the WoW token that you think, people are just going to buy the WoW token. There's still a lot of people in World of Warcraft that RMT. A lot.
Isn't a zero-sum game. There's no scarcity, but that's a separate topic. I've mentioned zero-sum games before, and some people got confused. A zero-sum game means that there are finite valued items. Not everyone can have everything. Risk, for example, there are only so many territories on the map. If you gain a territory, it's at the expense of someone else. In MMOs with zero-sum aspects, RMTing matters. A lot. Imagine playing Risk and your opponent swipes his credit card and then doubles his army. Not great. Ashes of Creation has several zero-sum game systems: castle ownership, node leveling, freeholds, and open-world raid bosses, to name a few. The Lazy Peon took a break from getting jacked and beating up people to talk about the potential harm RMTing could cause in Ashes.
That being said, there is one major thing that concerns me with Ashes, something I don't see many people talk about, which, if left unchecked, could ruin the end game, the sense of progression, and the economy.
He's right. Not many people have talked about this. My most viewed video to date is on botting and RMTing, though. It's actually not the first time peons expressed this concern.
Okay, this one's from the Lazy Peon. His question is in regards to play.
And I've talked about this before. I mean, I think you guys kind of know my stance on this. Intrepid just needs to be extremely heavy-handed. They have GMs. They're going to have actual human GMs on servers. And I think the very first week of Ashes of Creation's launch, the official launch, not Alpha 2, they need to openly say, guys, we have millions of players playing Ashes of Creation worldwide, but we've also banned over 100,000 people permanently because they try to circumvent the economy and buy gold. And this is a practice we do not like. In the same post, like, we're posting our numbers, but we're also posting the fact that 100,000 people got permanently banned. That to me is a very strong message, because most games nowadays, because there's not many people that are willing to actually pay $15 a month to play an MMORPG, they just suspend people. They'll just suspend you for a week, a month, 3 months, whatever. But permabans are rare, super rare.
win and gold buying. Some MMOs will not directly play to win in a game or indirectly play to win because they don't take harsh enough action against gold buying. Will you be more harsh on these players than other MMOs to maintain the integrity of the game in Ashes?
Yes.
We'll get into Intrepid's answer in a sec, but he makes a good point here.
Ashes of Creation is an MMO where the economy is a major pillar of gameplay.
It is.
This is a sand park MMO, a game that blends theme park elements such as dungeons, raids, and scheduled events with the emergent player-driven gameplay of a sandbox.
Because the sand park is so much more reliant on player-driven content, it's a big deal when one side gets an unfair advantage. Remember how I was talking about soul-bound gear in WoW? Well, Ashes won't be like that.
The majority of the items that exist in the game, and by majority I mean the vast majority of those items, are tradable. There is not soul-bound gear or bind on equip and bind on pickup.
No shit.
The economy is built in a way that requires not only the deconstruction of certain items.
So like Peon said, the economy is an integral part of Ashes. It has to
We all
function
know
well
this.
so the game systems don't grind to a halt. In fact, Intrepid has hired PhDs in economics to try to help them set up their economy.
Actually, we have hired at Intrepid Studios a PhD economist.
RMTing not only sidesteps the market in odd ways, it gives people an unfair advantage. Imagine if your guild is at war with another guild. There will be immense pressure on both sides to gain an advantage. A lot of current day MMO players will try to cheat by swiping.
The thing is, the ability to buy gold will be there, whether the devs like it or not.
Exactly. There will be an infinite amount of people willing to sell
Wanna
their
buy a
in-game gold
sundial?
for real life money. No one can control that. Let's say they find some gold sellers and ban them. Big deal. New ones just pop up. In fact, this will be an even bigger issue with Ashes because there's no box cost. In games
Yes.
like WoW, gold sellers have to pay the box cost and then the sub fee, which makes it a bigger deal.
Oh, Wagsy, thank you so much for the sub, dude. Thank you. And again, in Ashes of Creation, I think the RMT community, like the companies or the people that run these websites and do these things, Ashes of Creation is going to seem like the holy grail, because if you can RMT successfully in this game, you're going to make a shit ton of money. So RMTers are going to, they're going to want to hit this game hard, 100%, because you're basically telling them that we're trying to keep this economy very pristine and there isn't any WoW token where, you know, so gold is going to be extremely valuable. And because it's going to have that kind of a value, and just like Steven said, with like BOEs and stuff like that, there's not any BOPs, bind when picked up, or things are untradeable. That means gold is going to be very lucrative commodity. And if you can sell your gold in a game like Ashes, oh my God, you could potentially make thousands of dollars a day just selling gold in Ashes. So it is going to be one of those games that I think Intrepid really, really needs to scare the absolute shit of buyers. Sellers, they're going to be a dime a dozen, but you got to starve them. If no one is buying, then where's the value, right? You know the gold is valuable, but if no one is buying because everybody's extraordinarily scared to be permabanned, then you're starving out the sellers. And that to me is my hope. I truly hope that all of the back-end systems, all the stuff that they're wanting to do when it comes to gold and preserving the economy the way we all hope and dream it is, like, I hope after a while that RMTers just sort of give up and say, well, let's just, we tried, like, fuck Ashes, let's just go in RMT in WoW, or RMT in Final Fantasy, or RMT in these other games that we have no problem doing, because if they find us, they're just gonna slap us on the wrist, you know, and temp band us for a little bit, and then we have another account already. We're good. So that's my hope, honestly.
If they get banned, there's no box cost for Ashes, so it's a lower barrier to re-entry for these sellers who get banned. What Intrepid is doing, though, is going after the buyers. There's an unlimited supply of gold.
God, Burns is so
but
smart,
if you stifle
dude.
the demand, RMTing won't destroy your economy. We recently saw their Indeed post for more network engineers. I mean, server technology live stream. I joke, I actually did like it. It gave a small look at their back-end programming. They have servers which act as in-game services to monitor what's happening in the realm.
Microservices are, imagine them kind of like servers on top of the servers, like some database, for example, but it's active. It's not just storage, they're doing work. We have a node service that is responsible for leveling up and keeping track of all the nodes and upgrades that have to be done to nodes. We have a population service that is doing the spawning across all the realms. And we have a social service, which would be, for example, what would affect the party example that we just talked about. This means that server 1 and server 8 on the diagram can connect to that social service and exchange the locations of those two players. That way, player 1 and player 8 can have exactly the information they need to be able to see each other on the map.
These are examples of their microservices, but this isn't all of them. They even mentioned some others during the stream. The next slide, they call this monitoring technology the Eye of Shoal. I talked about this system before the tech live stream and just called it the all-seeing eye.
We wanted to be able to see, to have like an overview of what happens to the entire realm. And that's kind of hard to do if we just connect to a single server and then see what's on that one server and then jump on another server and see what's there. So we created a service that keeps track of all entities in the world.
Now combine that with what Steven says here.
We do have already built into the game, on the outset is essentially behavioral metrics. So, in the game, as a player does normal things and they acquire normal gold, that's all good.
Absolutely not, Adam. I will discuss that after this video, about the amount of content.
Well, but if there starts to be item IDs that appear on the player account that are out of the norm, like either a large amount of gold or, significant legendary items,
like
what
thresholds.
that does in the back.
So here Steven's talking about what will eventually become Shoal's Eye. He continues with something really interesting.
Exactly. What it does in the back, it flags the account for view so that we can take a look at where did this item come from? Is it coming from a known gold seller or a flag bot or whatever, and then we investigate.
Known gold seller. Wouldn't you just outright ban the seller? Not quite. In a Discord post, Steven talks about honeypots. These are alluring things which spring a trap when messed with. It stands to reason that Intrepid will use gold sellers to identify people who are buying gold. Peon relates RMTing to the war on drugs. If we continue this analogy, it's like having dealers lead the cops to the buyers. You're turning the big gold sellers into narcs. Not that narc. His video continues.
Another thing Intrepid could do to fight RMT is hire a dedicated team of RMT hunters who are just employed full-time to pretend to be gold buyers, then catch sellers in the act of selling, or even vice versa. They could even make fake gold selling websites to catch buyers, kinda like a sting operation. You basically just want to create a zero trust environment in the
I don't know if that's legal for Intrepid to do it. And I don't even know if it's really worth their time. I think if they just flag the person as, or the account as a seller, and any gold that it gets exchanged from this account to any other account is RMT. And then just boom, like permaban. Like I'm telling you, like you got to just scare the ever living shit out of buyers. Like because again, in other games, the buyers aren't scared. Buyers aren't scared to go to a website and buy gold for Final Fantasy, for World of Warcraft, for Guild Wars 2, for any other freaking game. They're not scared. You got to make them scared in ashes. Have to.
RMT community, where it's simply not worth it to buy or sell gold in this game. And if we get to that point,
just
then
buy the personal info.
could potentially solve one of the biggest problems plaguing MMOs for decades, or at the very least solve 99% of it.
I like his idea, but why pay people to do what you can get for free? With the behind-the-scenes tracking Intrepid can do, they turn gold sellers into informants, essentially free employees which rat out anyone who's trying to buy gold. I still think it would be legendary if Intrepid did Peon's idea though. So Intrepid answers Peon's question, but the real meat of their answer is here.
There is a sanctity that must be protected within the game from RMTing. In games that I've played, where the company or the publisher does not enforce rules, it becomes the standard that you buy gold. If you want to be competitive, if you want to compete at the top tier levels in certain games and everyone's buying gold, you are almost either have to buy the gold or you're just not going to be able to compete with those people. And that's a really shitty feeling to have. In order for that not to be the case, it is the responsibility of the publisher or the developers to.
Let me see. Let me ask you a hypothetical. Let's say Ashes of Creation creates fake websites for sellers just to catch those RMT purchasers. I don't recall if they said this or not. I do remember them saying they are. Let me see. Watching sites like this, but what stops a bad actor from swiping a credit card and say a major of opposing character names as the purchaser? What do you think should be the punishment for the character? So, I think it would be illegal for Intrepid to do it. Maybe not. I don't know. I think it just seems really weird. Like if Intrepid was the one creating these fake websites to then like, sell the fake gold or whatever, or act as like sellers themselves to attract buyers and stuff like that, or to even attract the other sellers to the market or whatever. There's a huge RMT community in World of Warcraft, and they're all in cahoots with each other. Like they all know each other, right? So if you are coming new into the game, you're going to be looked at probably as like, oh, we don't know you, right? We've been doing RMT for years with these other MMOs. You just popped up out of nowhere with Ashes of Creation. But again, I think it's all about the intent. Like, again, as a player, it's against TOS to buy gold. It is. In my opinion, it should be a zero tolerance policy across the board. If you are caught purchasing gold, you're just permabanned. And if you truly want to like play Ashes of Creation, just pay another $50 a month and start all over. But I think it should be it should be a permanent ban. Like you knowingly, like it's not like you on a whim were like, I'll hit this button and boom, I get gold instantly. You have to go to the website. You have to enter in how much gold you want. You got to enter in your server information. You got to enter in your character information. It's a process. Like you didn't just stumble on the website and just like, oh, whoops. Like, what did I do? Like what's going on? Like, no. You knew exactly what you were doing. Let me see. What about friends giving coin all the time, or known buyers and sellers already paired coming into the game? So that is going to be interesting. Friends giving coin all the time. I don't know what friend gives large amounts of gold to other friends, especially all the time. I think that is a very niche situation. And I also think too, if you are known on your guild, like if you are in a major guild and your guild leader gives you like a lot of gold from the guild bank, again, Intrepid could trace all this shit. Everything's traceable in this game. It's not like they don't know where it came from. But I think if those large sums of gold, let's say you won a contest in a guild contest or something like that, I'm sure Intrepid's going to be fine with that. Like it's fine. But this is why Intrepid doesn't really want to ban the sellers, because they need to be able to flag those accounts to see where the gold came from. Like where did you get this stuff from? You know what I mean? Like all of that is extremely important. Let me see. Usually friends do that for a small and trusted group. Gold sellers are more likely to spread to different groups, so it shouldn't be much of a problem. Yeah, I completely agree. It's not going to be a problem. With no soul buying, lending, and borrowing high value items is not uncommon. Oh no, it's not going to be uncommon. Like again, I think because everything is going to be very traceable. Like, and again, if Intrepid is very keen onto what accounts are going to be flagged as like, this is the bot, or this is the seller, or these are all the seller accounts or whatever. Like sellers are very, again, they are so predictable in their behavior and pattern. It's not hard. And I've seen people on the forums that used to be RMT sellers that worked for those egregious websites and know the game pretty well, and I remember seeing posts like this in 2021, like on the forums. It's not like Intrepid doesn't have people that they could actually go to for the ins and outs of that particular, like what happens. They know. Like I think Intrepid knows very well, actually. I just don't think they want to tell us how much they know, and they shouldn't, Again, I think it's just the amount of people that thinking like, oh, like I wasn't buying gold. This is my friend or whatever. It's like, really? You interacted with this person once, they logged out, never logged in ever again, and this person's your friend that just had like 30,000 gold lying around, and they're not in your guild, and they're guildless? Really? Gold farming isn't TOS though? No, it's not. It's not. But again, Intrepid's going to know where that gold came from. They're going to know. And again, whenever you're trading large sums of gold, and this could also be too, because again, these RMTers are going to be very, very, very smart too. It's also the amount of transactions, right? Let's say you did buy a large amount of gold, but because we were talking about, okay, well, it's not going to be very safe for us to basically transfer you 30,000 gold. So we're going to give you like 500 gold. And throughout the span of a month, by the end of that month, you will have 30,000 gold, because that is the safest way to do it in a game like Ashes of Creation. Eventually, you will be found out. Like, I think, again, even trying to do it safe, it ain't going to happen. Because, again, once people start doing it, you as the seller are going to have a lot of orders. And, again, this isn't just like I did it a one-time thing. That's not how these websites work. These websites are mules. Like, they have people playing in India, like, 24/7. Like, it's going to be a problem. Yeah, again, gold isn't the problem. No, you're right. Gold is not the issue. It's the flagging of the sellers and the banning of the buyers. That's really what it is.
To make sure that we have stringent practices from a CS from a customer service perspective to enforce our rules, and to make sure that players are aware if they partake in this, there is a huge risk in doing so. It's not going to be a slap on the hand. It's not going to be we told you once, we told you twice, we told you 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Okay, we're just taking some gold away, that kind of thing. We have got to ensure that it is feared to do those things. It is feared.
It's going to be bans. There won't be the casual 1 or 2 day suspensions. It's going to be account permabans. This is especially impactful in Ashes because leveling takes forever. They've given us...
No, it's the selling of gear for real money, skipping the gold step. Okay. And again, this is why it's going to be very important to flag certain characters. And again, like, Intrepid is not going to get it all correct at first. It's not saying that, like, I think there's going to be people that are going to do very stupid decisions early on. Those people will be banned. But as soon as the game or players or anybody starts getting more sophisticated in their dealings, like, hey, let me pay you $35 so you can trade me this, like, BIS mythic piece. And again, you're not in my guild. I don't know you at all. And then boom, like, you just trade it to me, and that's it. All of that is completely, like, how should I say, documented in the game. And that's going to put up a red flag immediately. I'm sure it's going to put a red flag immediately, because you're getting it traded from a person that either trades items like that often, or if it's not often and it's like a one-time, like, hey, I got this piece of gear and I really don't need it. I don't want to give it to my guild, but I need to make some quick cash. I'll sell it to you for $100. You may get away with that once. Like, I'm not saying that you won't get away with it, but I think it's more of it's not the mom and pop businesses that I think are going to be the worry at first. It's more of the corporatized RM team that's going to be the issue. And I think that is what at large we're trying to completely just eradicate, right? Mom and, like, me as the person, right? Like, I can just go, hey, I got this BOE, dude. Like, you want to buy it from me for, like, and just Venmo me like $50 and I'll trade it to you. Like, I think it's, like, that to me is the, that's going to be an issue too. It is, but we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening and how detailed this stuff is going to be.
Estimates that getting to max level will be about 250 hours. Losing out on all that time will hurt. Also, Intrepid has hinted that they'll display the accounts of cheaters on some form of gallows.
There's also a place where, punishments could happen.
Where's that?
That would be freaking funny.
Or something?
They just hang the character or something.
Being handled in a good way from any MMO that allows player-to-player trading. We also haven't seen an MMO with the server foundation like Ashes of Creation.
There is another approach to dealing with RMT though. a less popular approach that definitely works but seriously damages the MMO experience, and that's completely disabling player-to-player trade, as well as implementing marketplace price ranges. Now this would go completely against a key pillar of Ashes of Creation's design philosophy, but other MMOs have done this and it does work. Black Desert Online is an example of an MMO with 0 gold sellers. This is because players can't trade anything of value to each other, and the marketplace has set price ranges. Ironically, BDO would be one of the least pay-to-win MMOs from an RMT perspective if it wasn't for the pay-to-win on the cash shop. Back in 2008, RuneScape tried limiting free trade, making it so players could only exchange items that were equal in value. This basically killed the game for a while though, until it was later reverted, so
that would be so
I think
funny.
The best approach to RMT is just making it a permaban offense for both buying and selling.
Like you said, being able to trade and sell is a core pillar of the game. I think you mentioned the idea of no player-to-player trading for completeness sake, not as a recommendation.
So I think when it comes to the sellers, I don't think those sellers should be banned. Because when it comes to the corporatized, when it comes to the whole corporatized RMT thing, springing up an extra $15 a month on another account, and then now you have to make sure, like, this new account, like, how are they going to know if that account's flagged or not? I think, again, like, you just have to starve out the buyers. Leave the sellers alone. Like, have them flagged as a seller. You know that they're a seller. Like, you know, I don't know. I think, again, like, when you start banning the sellers, they're just going to keep popping up. And then now, as Intrepid, they have to start figuring out, oh, this is new person that's leveling up and doing stuff. Like, are they an RMTer, or are they a regular gamer? You know, whatever. I think just ban the buyers. Banning the buyers, scare the shit out of the buyers. If you do that, the sellers will starve themselves.
I'm glad it works for BDO, but Ashes is an economy with the training wheels off. It's a completely different animal. The primary gold faucet isn't selling swords dropped from wolves for a predetermined price to some NPC.
Yes, it would be insane.
Caravans and trading. If you're not familiar with that, you should watch my caravan videos.
Mad.
No player-to-player trading in MMOs makes the game far less social. The genre is already single-player focused enough. Like you said, it hurt the player numbers a lot in RuneScape. If you ban player trading but still have auction houses, there's more potential for cheating there too. You put a seemingly innocuous item up for a large amount of money and the gold sellers buy it from you. Kind of like what criminals do with modern art. It has a subjective value that can be used to launder money. This could happen in Ashes of Creation too, except it's not the sellers they're going after, it's the buyers. The known gold sellers will reveal the buyers even if they're using the auction house system. The buyer puts up one stack of tier 1 cloth for 2 million gold, which is then bought by the known gold seller Intrepid is following. They see the transaction happen, and the guy who has 2 million gold now gets banned. There's still ways around that. Maybe you just sell an item to a gold seller for a little bit more than the item's worth. Much harder to track that way. From what I know though, these gold sellers aren't normal players, so everything they do will probably be watched. Like I said, Intrepid is turning the sellers into informants. One thing they need to be careful with though is how quickly they handle this. If you catch a gold buyer a week after it happened, his gold has likely already been spent in the economy. Removing all that gold retroactively would punish the innocent.
We need to be Johnny on the spot when it comes to botting or RMTing.
That's why having active GMs is such a big deal.
It's having active and present GMs on servers.
Yeah, and on the customer service side, we do plan to have in-game GMs.
I remember this Halloween stream.
Has active GMs.
Most MMOs don't have active GMs anymore because they cost money. Intrepid's willing to spend that money in order to preserve the integrity of their game. A former WoW GM named Moonsty has a YouTube channel where he talks about what he did as a GM.
This next guy, I got a report that he was botting, so I went over to him, checked him out, saw that he was doing the same rotation in the combat log. So I unstealthed myself and I was like, hey, what's 3 plus 7? Easy math question, no language barrier. Completely ignored me and just ran off. So I followed him, jumped around, didn't respond to me, so I banned him. Then there was this guy who was popping up on our speed hack detector, and I was looking at him and I'm like, what's this guy doing? I don't think he's speed hacking. He's sitting here drinking and eating. I'm just watching him. So he kills this mob and I'm like, all right, whatever. He's just gonna go kill another, I'll just keep watching. And I was about to leave actually. And then I see him moving at Mach 5 and I'm going, whoa, whoa, whoa. Question, did you ever watch people do raids and ensure that they weren't cheating? Yes, we did. We would also watch people do raids to see where bugs were happening and make sure that the boss encounters worked how they were supposed to.
So yeah, GMs will catch cheaters, but I think
I
it's
miss
cool
those
how
old
they
days in
preserve
WoW.
the game integrity in other ways too. Before we wrap up, there are two other forms of RMTing I wanted to address. First, power leveling. You can pay someone to run through higher level content and you get the higher level XP reward. It'd be impossible to track this type of transaction from a server standpoint. Instead, Intrepid is doing this.
What type of safeguards do we put from, power leveling or twinking? Obviously, we adjust experience based on level differential between the target enemy and the group. Obviously, we take the difference in the party max level and the party's lowest level, and those things can indicate the modifier that is applied to incoming experience based on the number of participants within that party, and those help safeguard those things.
So it sounds like they'll modify experience with certain levels.
You see, this has me concerned for people who do what is called flippers. You see, people who buy items to turn around and sell for a higher price. Thoughts? I mean, isn't that just economics 101? Isn't that like what most people do? Like if I go to Ross or Marshalls or whatever, and I buy something and then I flip it, I sell it at a higher price. Like I is that really what you're talking? Is that what you're talking about, Mio? Like, is there anything else that that you're referring to when it comes to that? I just think it's like basic economics, like in MMOs. It's like, okay, like I understand that there's like sometimes you buy an item and you hope you can sell it for more. This is like what people do sometimes in WoW, where like if I'm a linen cloth seller and there isn't that much linen cloth in the auction house, if I have enough gold, I'll buy out all of the linen cloth in the auction house and just repost it all with a new set price that I want it to be at. Like if it was selling at like 15 gold for a stack of 20 and I wanted to sell it at 25 gold, then I can do that, right? I'll just buy out, if I can, I'll buy out all the freaking stacks and just repost it at to my mark. I don't see anything wrong with it, because most of the time in economy is like, if you don't like the price, you don't have to buy it, like unless you're pressed for time. But again, that's, it's very common economics in MMOs.
Level thresholds to stop this. Another form of RMTing is piloting. This is where you pay someone to play your character. This is near impossible to stop, but I don't think it'll be widespread. The level of trust required to give someone your account login is too high for most. Also, it's a slow way to cheat. The biggest advantage you can get is by someone gaining gold and experience in-game at 1x speed. Let
me see. Yes, but will Intrepid ignore a flipper if they have a history of flipping when someone is selling an item in hopes they can money launder with it? It all comes down to the intent, right? Like if you're doing what I suggested and you're just like you're buying an item for like 15 gold and you want to flip it for 25 or 30 gold, that isn't that big of a deal. But if you're buying an item and then you want to like 100x the price, there's something fishy going on there. Like this item doesn't normally cost this amount, right? So again, like I think there's going to be some things that might slip through the cracks. But again, once certain buying practices, and again, we as players aren't dumb either. If we are starting to discover a new form of cheating or RMTing that players, got away with for like a couple of days or a week and shit, like, and now, like, again, like content creators are all picking it up. Intrepid's going to act again. Like we just heard Steven say, like as soon as something happens, they have to act. So it all comes down with the intent, but at the same time, like there's probably going to be some stuff that might slip through the cracks. But I think, again, I'm fine with stuff being slipped through the cracks. The fact of the matter is the cracks in other MMOs is the freaking Grand Canyon, right? Like everything's fucking getting through. There isn't, there's no stopping it. I think here, like it's kind of a different conversation. Flipping was a thing in old school RuneScape. You bought a flower for, let's say, 3 gold and try to sell it for 5. If someone upped the price in the grand exchange to that amount, it gets sold. If enough people do that, the price would creep up. Yeah, and again, like, and then once once stuff like it's like when demand is high, you sell for more. When the demand is low, it sells for less, right? So it's all about supply and demand. And eventually, like, if people are really needing flour that bad, then of course the price is going to creep up. That's just, again, basic economics. And then when flour isn't being bought and you have all this flour and you can't get rid of it, it's going to naturally start going down.
An instant, you could buy the amount of gold playing for what 500 hours could get you. So these lesser forms of armting, while harder to stop, also have much less impact. Going back to Peon's idea about setting up fake websites to catch people, it would probably be the most plausible way to stop stuff like power leveling and piloting.
TLDR is going to be a game where the procurement of resources is a massive part of the gameplay loop. So whilst the cash shop won't be pay to win, the game's entire economy and sense of progression could potentially be ruined by RMT if the devs don't permaban players for buying gold and have backend systems and dedicated teams in place to detect it. And that's my biggest concern with Ashes of Creation. Gameplay wise, not too many concerns, combat's looking decent nowadays, and I'm excited to play Alpha 2 in a few months.
So I add my voice to Lazy Peons. I hope GMs will be actively monitoring for potential gold buyers. This clip from 2017 shows how armting isn't an afterthought for Intrepid.
What precautions will be taken against cheating, exploiting gold sellers' bots? From day one. Literally from day one.
Intrepid has designed Ashes for this, though. I don't think people have recognized the ridiculousness of their back-end programming yet, but they will. This isn't another WoW clone. Ashes is actually a next-gen MMO. You'll never be able to completely stop all RMTing. It'll happen on a small scale, but from what we know, it won't be game-breaking. I want to point out how unique guys like the Lazy Peon on Pirate Software are. They didn't jump on the bandwagon of airing out Ashes drama like so many others. With my Asmongold monetization video, I wanted to demonstrate why Intrepid couldn't just make the Alpha 2 keys free. While we want to be inviting and positive in Ashes, I think it is important to set the record straight on some things, hopefully with a bit of levity though. Can't tell you guys what to do, but I highly recommend subscribing to the Lazy Peon. I think it's important that we support the real ones. Speaking of, if you've made it this far in the video, why not subscribe? It's encouragement for me to keep going. Thanks for watching, and as always, be careful with the copium.
It's highly addictive.
Bro. Burns does not miss at all. Like, Burns is going to be one of the biggest Ashes of Creation content creators by the time the game launches. I would honestly say by the time the game launches, Burns will have over 100,000 or even 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. Easy. He makes quality content. Like, dude, people are sleeping on Burns 100%. Like, I think, once more of these mainstay, like Asmongold, Shroud, Tim the Tapman, once they start seeing Burns, dude, Burns is going to freaking go like parabolic in the YouTube algorithm. I think he's going to be one of the biggest content creators, and I'm fucking here for it. Great fucking video. I'm sure you guys watched it. I have not gotten a chance to watch it, so hit that like button. Go subscribe if you have not subscribed. How dare you? Get the hell out of my channel. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, go ahead and subscribe. Great video. Now I really want to watch Bespoke because
Ashes,
we've been watching Bespoke here, and so I want to watch Bespoke, and then after that, I think we'll be good. Yeah, we should be good. All right, let's watch Bespoke. Let me see. It's when Ashes becomes mainstream. Oh yeah, like when Ashes becomes mainstream, like you're gonna see content creators. I mean, I hope I pop off. I mean, I'm not trying to spurge like my own stuff. Like, I'm gonna be making content, but is my content? I mean, let's have an honest conversation here. Is my content at the level of Burns? Hail to the no. Like, I think Burns is in a class of his own right now, personally. I think Burns, his way of making Ashes content is just so radically different comparatively to all the other content creators, including myself. That's why I think he has a really, really good shot of standing out, right? You do different things. No, absolutely. I'm not trying to like talk crap about myself or other content creators. I'm just saying, as far as Burns goes, I think he has like a very good way to make videos. Dude, that video was 17 minutes long. I honestly didn't even feel it. Like, that's hard to do. Like, as a YouTuber, as someone who creates content, that is the hardest thing for you to do, is keep your listener and viewer engaged for that period of time. And I think he always does a very, very good job of doing that. Step 1, buy items, fair price, sell up. Step 2, gradually build up wealth and hire mercs. Step 3, cause artificial scarcity. Step 4, buy out and charge up to drain that economy. Step 5, maintain mercenary employment. Yeah, and again, there's going to be a lot of economic warfare. There's going to be people that are going to have a lot of gold, and they're going to be going out and buying out auction houses. And it's going to be because there is a warring guild, and they're like, hey, this guild owns this territory. We're just going to go buy up all their shit. And now they have no economy. They have no auction house. There's nothing in their auction house. Right? So it could, again, there's going to be a lot of stuff I think is going to be really, really cool in Ashes, but we shall see what ends up happening once we get in the Alpha 2.
Just be ruined by min-maxers.
I don't think min-maxing ruins the game.
Yes, Burns is not just playing a role of the doctor. Like, he actually is a doctor in real life. He went to school for almost 9 years. So he is a smart cookie.
They're the ones that find the really nasty stuff that are going to make your life miserable.
Will YouTubers like you and I spoil everything before the game actually releases?
Everything that is revealed to us will be revealed to the world.
But guides have been around forever.
This is literally a learn to play issue. In a perfect world, I would erase YouTube.
I'm sure they will spoil a lot of things, but
I think people like being spoiled. Like, again, okay, let me rephrase this. Let me rephrase this. I don't like being spoiled. I like anime. I'm a huge anime watcher. When I'm scrolling on Facebook and I see like a post of like a new episode and they have a thumbnail of like a scene from the episode I have not watched, and it's like with a title that, you know, is like, whoa, like something about the episode, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing, dude? Like, why couldn't you be more like covert, right? But YouTube guides, like, are YouTubers gonna, like, you have to be like a very special individual as a YouTuber to clickbait someone into being like, hey, this is a guide for blacksmithing or whatever. And then you go in there and they basically, it's like, haha, spoil, like, this cinematic right here and this right here. Like, I don't really think that's going to be the case. I think players, again, if you see a dungeon that opened up from another server that isn't on yours, you're going to want to probably look at that content. Like, hey, what's that dungeon about, right? Like, there's people that want to spoil themselves. They're not going to wait for that dungeon to open on their server, right? And if someone gets upset that like if I saw a thumbnail of like, hey, this dungeon, like, I'm a content creator from, you know, Sargeras server, and this dungeon opened up on our thing. Here's like a preview of, or here's like the whole thing that we did with it. And I click on the video, just leave a thumbnail, be like, spoilers much? That is also a special individual. It's like, dude, you didn't have to watch the video. You didn't have to click the thumbnail. You could have just scrolled on. Like, I don't, that to me is like where I think people get a little too ridiculous. Like when it comes to, you know, people that like, oh God, how dare you?
Will YouTubers spoil everything
Yoshida,
before
dude,
the
what's
game
going on, man?
actually launches?
100%. Everything, okay, now let me rephrase that. Everything that is revealed to us will be revealed to the world. Obviously, we know that there's some things, like especially like lore related stuff, that Steven's just not telling us. Will we see? You know, either because we don't unlock it, or two, because they're not just going to do it. Like Jamie has liked to say that we won't see everything during Alpha 2. They might get 1 or 2 nodes working perfectly, and once they know that their tech works, they'll spread that out to all the other nodes, and we won't have to test those nodes because they already know the tech works. So we're not going to go test them. I disagree with that.
Yeah,
but
I do
if
too.
that were the case, that means there's going to be a lot of stuff we don't see. But everything us content creators can see, everything we can touch, everything we can play with, will be recorded and put out to the world. 100%.
100%.
And there might be some of us within our own little niche community right now that say, I don't want to spoil that I'm going to let other people figure that out. I don't want to get the views. I don't want to get the clicks. But there's a whole lot of YouTubers that are coming in after us who aren't going to give a shit about that, and they will spoil it.
No. I'm sure they will spoil a lot of things, but I know there's going to be certain things that Intrepid is planning on keeping out of beta and alpha, I think as far as lore and that sort of thing goes, until the game actually launches. So no, they're not going to spoil everything. They'll probably spoil a lot of things, but there's going to be things that will still surprise players that are coming into the game. And also, it can't be spoiled if you don't watch it. So true. I guess that's part of it too.
That's very freaking true.
YouTubers like yourself spoil everything before the game actually launches.
Released an album.
Absolutely, yes. Right. There's people who don't want YouTubers to exist and don't want Twitch content creators to exist. But guides have been around forever. Like when I was playing WoW, it was Thoughtbot, I think was the classic one, which is an interesting name considering the new connotation. But like guides exist. You can't stop it. You can't put the cork back in the bottle.
Yeah.
They're going to exist. And I think Ashes of Creation has one of the big problems right now, where it might be the singularly most solved MMO of all time. We have people reading the wiki every single day, knowing.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like I remember having conversations with people about questing, and they're like, "I don't want quest markers. I don't want there to be this thing in the game that basically, tells you like the item is over here and blah 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 blah." And I remember there was the stream where Steven, I think it was the stream where it was like it started raining and the lightning happened and Steven died by the lightning. I remember certain people like on the forums and stuff didn't like the fact that there was an indication of the quest and where it could potentially be. And people were like upset about that. They wanted Ashes to be this game that doesn't have any indicators. Like you have to go and read. You have to go and read. And it's like, okay, no one's going to read. They're just going to go to the Thoughtbot version of Ashes of Creation or to YouTube or to Google and be like, Charity of the Sun quest, Ashes of Creation, enter. Oh, okay. That's where the item is. Cool. That's what's going to happen. Like, okay. So if you don't have stuff in the game, then you're just going to second monitor your quest just like the people did back in 2007. So what are we talking about here? like, why are people so agitated at the fact of a marker on a map? Who fucking cares? It's questing. To me, what I care most about is the quest fun. Is the quest actually providing you cool lore bits? Is it actually engaging gameplay? Is it a cool boss lead up or whatever? Like, I don't give a shit if it's indicated in the game, because if it's not, I go to a fucking website anyway and find out the answer. So who cares? Like that's my whole thing. Like because I can guarantee you this. If you're going to watch me play Ashes of Creation and Steven and Intrepid get rid of all the markers and stuff like that for all the quests and all the testers in Alpha 2, we basically, someone creates a website, gathers all that information up anyway, or there's a map that I can just look at onto my second monitor and be like, oh, I'm on this quest. Oh, that's where that item is. Those are the animals I need to kill are, this is where the map on the floor is that I got to right click on. It's all going to be there. So I think at least having something in the game is actually more immersive than me having to, alt tab or go to my second monitor to find the quest or find the website to do all that stuff. Like that's just my opinion on that. I don't know why so many people are mad about the small stuff like that. I don't know either. Like, I don't know. Like, people want to gatekeep Ashes of Creation to be this like hard game, or like, the people, like, again, people romanticize about this game in the sense of like they want it to be like Ultima Online or EverQuest. Of like, well, there wasn't indicators when I played MMOs back in 2001 or back in 1999, or it's like, well, yes, but we're not living in 1999 anymore, nor are we living in 2001. So if you want a game like, again, Ashes of Creation is going to have a lot of old school principles. It is like, we all can agree that Ashes of Creation has a lot of old school MMO principles. But if you're not going to do that, people are always going to find the path of least resistance. So if I was the developer, I would put indicators in the game anyway. Who fucking cares? It's not a big deal. You're not going to explode, or you're not going to be like, Ash's Creation is trash. And you're like, well, what's trash about it? Because when you do quest in Ash's Creation, it just tells you where it is. Like, how low effort is that? Or how, like, big smooth brain do you have to be because you can't read a quest? Well, people that don't read quests don't read them anyway. Like, I don't know. I think people, again, they want to play this game in this very hard way, and they want everyone to play in that way. Well, guess what, dude? No one is going to play your way of playing a game. No one. Like, everyone's going to play their MMO, or their experience or their gameplay experience is going to be far different than anyone else's. And that's the beauty of MMOs, is that MMOs provide that difference. That's why I love MMOs. Like, it didn't kill me. Like, I played, honestly, from 2006, when I played Classic or Vanilla WoW, to 2007, for I think a whole year, I played World of Warcraft with no add-ons. I didn't know what add-ons were. I had no, I literally, like, had people, like, because I would ask trade chat, like, hey, I'm on this quest, I have no idea where it is. Like, again, because you're not going to want to discover shit. I didn't want to discover shit. Like, I didn't want, like, when I saw a quest and I didn't know where to go, or like whatever, it's like, I would ask trade chat. And then again, in trade chat, people told me, just go to this website. Because, you know, people didn't say Google it back then. People were like, oh, you need help with this quest? Go to thoughtbot.com. And that's what it was. And I was like, oh, okay. So I just bookmarked Thoughtbot. And then whenever I was on a quest and I couldn't figure it out easily, I went to Thoughtbot, typed in the quest, and boom. Oh, that's where the quest is, or that's where the thing is. Like, that's what people are going to do. Like, it's, let me see, if it's part of the HUD, I have an option to turn it off in the settings, make everyone happy. Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. If you want quests, if you need a helper of quests, then you can turn it on. If you want to play hard mode Ashes of Creation with no quest markers, then you can do that too. Who fucking cares? To me, I think there's way bigger fish to fry than a person getting helped by a fucking quest helper. Who gives a shit? Like, questing to me is supposed to be therapeutic. It's supposed to be fun. And if you want to have, if you are that player that doesn't want any help, that isn't going to go through some guide, and you want to figure it out on your own, that's your way of fun. I don't find fun in that. I get very frustrated very quickly. So I want to go, I want to do quests. I don't want to be inefficient at quests. I want to go knock them out, do what I got to do. And that's my way of having fun. So I'm not poo-pooing on your idea of having fun, of having no quest markers, you figuring it out and big braining it all. That's your way of doing it. Cool. Not mine. Like, why am I going to have to be punished because that's the way you like to play? Like, that's just, you know, my opinion. I'd prefer not to waste my time with lesser versions of farming. Meta farming is just, in fact, it's just a fact, and I'd always search farming guides on YouTube. Yeah, a lot of people do. A lot of people don't like wasting their time. Like, I think we can all agree on that. No one likes wasting their time. No one. They can add an optional UI hardcore mode, basically allow players to remove indicators if they wish to do so. Yeah, cool. Absolutely. Yeah, as long as we're talking about PvE only, then I can agree that people can do whatever. Yes, I am, let me be clear. I am talking just about PvE quests. Only PvE quests. Like, I'm not trying to, you know, I think PvP is a whole other subject of that conversation, but I think all I'm talking about is kind of like the thought bots, or, you know, the whole guides thing. You know, people are going to always try to find the most optimal or efficient route for doing shit. Let them. Who gives a shit?
Every little thing that Steven has ever said. Now,
Am I a sadist or a masochist?
Can
Maybe a little bit of
they
both.
really keep secret from us? How much will the meta change when it comes out? Obviously, you know, I'm not in the knowledge that I don't really know what it will be, but the MMOs will ruin the fun for some people. But if you don't want that, you obviously don't have to check the guides. That's first and foremost. But the reality is there will be a meta, and the people who are following that meta will be stronger than you if you are just doing it yourself and you're not very good at doing it yourself. So will they ruin it? No, I don't like the word ruin. I think you now have to design your game, and design every single game probably out there, with the knowledge that this information is being shared way quicker than it used to be. That if you keep that in mind and you design around it, then it's not a problem. If you put a game online and it's
Ashes of Creation is doing the right thing to combat mindless guides, though. There will be so many variations across Vera from across the different servers that won't be one guide fits all. Yes, there will. When it comes to quests, there absolutely will. There's going to be quests that probably don't open up to on your server, but if I type in, the throne is nigh, or the blood is due, something like that. That is a quest that every server, that's just a quest in Ashes of Creation. So if I need help, or there's like a quest guide or a website that I can go and figure stuff out, like there will be guides in that way. Now, where there'll be guides in the sense of like efficiency and time, like, oh, when you're on your server, you want to do these quests to go to these quests to go to these quests. Well, that stuff might not be available for you. What I'm mostly referring to, at least for myself, is the fact that I don't care if there is an indicator, or if the quest says, hey, can you kill 8, minotaurs and loot, or I need the skull of the chieftain minotaur, and it gives me a bubble on the mini map, or I hit M and there's just on the map, there's a red circle there of where all those minotaurs are. And I go there, and on my mini map, like, I see like, oh, there's where the chieftain is, or whatever the case is, like, but there's like a general thing of like where those minotaurs are. And I see a large tower, and I'm thinking, I wonder if the chieftain is in the large tower, kind of shit, right? Like, I'm fine with that. I don't care. Like, I think it's totally fine.
It's got loads of little secrets, and the secrets are the whole game. Then of course.
See, but what if the NPC spot doesn't exist on your server? Well, why are you looking up a quest that you're not doing? Again, like, if you're on a quest, it's doable. Ashes of Creation isn't going to give you a quest to do if you can't do it. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, I think that would be the biggest bug, or the biggest WTF, if that was an intended thing. Like, come on, guys.
So a lot of people are just going to Google that, get the secrets, and be done with the game. It really depends on how you make it and how that interacts with the audience, knowing that YouTube exists, knowing that guides are going to be written all the time.
Will YouTubers like you and I spoil everything before the game actually releases?
I mean, I can't say for sure, but like, I don't think we're going to see the entirety of Ashes of Creation before launch.
Ooh.
I feel like they could get away with, say, leaving one side of the continent. But how do you go through and you test every node setup that's possible with the 85 nodes they have, and test all the content locked behind those 85 nodes and all the different situations they could pop up, and test, okay, this node's a vassal to this node, and this node is a metropolis. I don't think Intrepid's going to be able to, in a reasonable time frame, test absolutely everything Ashes of Creation
go to a node that's been sieged for 2 months.
And I don't think they need to. I think if they get the world going and they get the big
What's
systems
up, Bergen?
like
I hope you're doing well,
flushed
man.
out
Good
and
to see you,
Naval
dude.
flushed out, then the other areas that they didn't test, I think, are going to run smoother.
See, and I liked open world events. I think, again, if you are in the Riverlands, I think those kind of indications are really, really, really good. In Guild Wars 2, there are events that kind of pop up randomly, but you need to kind of be within the proximity of the event in order to see that there is an event going on. I kind of don't like that. I think if you're in the biome, or if you're in the zone and there's an event happening, I think everybody should know that, hey, there's an event happening. Now, it's your choice after that. Because if you're on the complete west side of the or the zone, and the world event or the special event is happening on the east side of the zone, you may just forego it. Like, if it's like gonna last for like 25 minutes, it might take you 25 minutes just to fucking get there. So you might just be like, it's whatever. But I am of the mindset that I think you should at least see it. Like, I don't know if I like the Guild Wars 2 approach of you have to be very much within the proximity of the thing in order to see it. Like, I don't know, just my opinion. I like when those world events feel like there's a lot of people there, right? I hate it when you're doing something like an event and you're like 2 people doing it. It feels really kind of shitty.
not necessarily bug free, but maybe to a point where, okay, we don't need to re-release everybody until the beta and
dude,
then the week-long beta.
Oh my god, if I can imagine if Ashes of Creation did freaking oh my god, the scouters, dude. I would wear a scouter. I would literally wear a scouter on stream if they did that. That'd be freaking amazing. But like, what's his power level? It's like, that'd be so funny.
People will rush through there and will respond to those fixes, but I don't think it'll ruin everything. I think there'll be enough content out there though for play.
This is a rare event happening on the other continent. I wouldn't do that. I think if it's a rare event, and again, it's a rare event, like because I think there's like different scales of events, right? There's events that happen and it's just like a little bit of a larger than life quest, right? So it gives you a little bit more experience. It may give you like some, options of lucrative rewards that you select from. But if it's like a rare event, I think if it is happening on the other continent, why should you get pinged? We don't know how long it could take to even go to the other continent. So it's like, there's no reason for you to know. I personally think that if it's a rare event, I think, in my opinion, the same rules apply. If the event is happening in a certain zone, only the people in the zone should be pinged for that rare event. Just my opinion, maybe a hot take, but still my opinion.
Players who don't understand what the game is to get started and really get them on the right track.
You think they might...
Metros becoming available? So now you're talking about something different, right? Now you're talking about a node. That, to me, the cat is still out of the bag for me on that. I don't know. There's 85 nodes. Can you imagine all of the pings you're going to be getting? Like, if it gives you all information when a node levels from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3. Like, I think that's kind of ridiculous, right? So how I would do it, and again, just my opinion, at least right now for the start, I think there should be a UI element of, you can see on your map all of the node locations and what levels they are. And I know there's some people that may disagree with that. They think that you need to go and release the fog of war or whatever the case is. But I don't know. Again, the cat's still out of the bag for me. I don't know if I would like that, wouldn't like that. I have to get inside the game to really figure it out for myself, to see what feels better as a gamer in the game. Because I think it could potentially be too much. I don't know. Yeah, all 85 can be metros though. No, I know, but I'm talking just more about node notifications, right? So when it comes to the 5 metros, a thing hit a metro, okay, that's fine. Like I think even if the metro is like on the complete opposite zone or continent or whatever, like I think that stuff should actually be kind of announced as like a big deal kind of thing. I just don't know about node announcements in general. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I think the node announcement, like, I think it could be too much if it's just like, yeah, anytime a node levels, we're just going to let you know, Notifications. Yeah, exactly. All right, let's keep on.
Withhold testing on the entire on an entire continent, or do you think that would just be part of one of the two continents?
So, I go back and forth on that. It might not necessarily be the entire eastern side of the map. Like, it could be, we have 75% of this map, so to speak. Like, they don't need to show us every single biome, I don't think. But at the same time, if you look at how Alpha 2 is being built, you have the tropics, you have the riverlands, you have the jungle, you have the badlands, you have the redwood forest that they talked about a couple years ago. It's everything Alpha 2 related seems to be on that western side of the map.
Hold on, I'm gonna use the bathroom real quick. But when it comes to the nodes, metros, yes, because again, nodes in general start locking out other nodes. Like, once a node hits like level 3, you can't have multiple level 3 nodes like surrounding your ZOI, right? So it's gonna start locking nodes out, right? So yes, that is definitely a thing. Give me one second. I'm gonna put some music on for you guys to listen to. I will be right back. Oh, all right. Sorry. All right.
I don't think
this.
so. I don't think so at all. And I'm biased here because I'm a
Oh,
YouTuber and I don't want that blame
heck?
put on me.
Furroe? Dude, thank you so much for the follow. That was like 15, 17 minutes ago. I'm so sorry. Thank you. If you're still watching, I really appreciate the follow. Thank you.
No, but in all seriousness, with the mechanics, the rock paper scissors mechanics of how combat's going to work, there will be some classes that are good, but the whatever build comes out, if they do combat correctly, it will have counters, and so it's this moving dynamic world. Like, you look at other MMORPGs as an example. A PCNA for ESO was very fast-paced, high-damage meta, where a lot of players played this specific way, and that's how they survived. And then you go over to PCEU, it was a lot tankier. It relied on mechanically. It's not like the players were any different. It's just the meta, like what players choose to hang on to, was quite a bit different. And then you go to console, where you're capped at 30 frames per second, and your reaction time, like the game's not working very well. Everybody built tanky there as well. And so when I would go from playing on console to playing on PC, like, my build would work on both of them, but it would work better on one specific one because it was catered to fight those types of players. And so when I would go to another platform, I would have to adjust my build to deal with the types of players that I was dealing with. And so I would adjust based off of what the community is. And so when you look at what servers for Ashes are, you're going to have...
No one is awesome.
Like we've been talking to guilds.
He's a great content creator
for a while now. You have some guilds that are like, we're going to have an all cleric guild. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And so your dominant guilds on an area are going to set the meta, and all those guilds are going to run different playstyles. And so your overall best, quote unquote, best build isn't going to be the same across every single server if they get the rock, paper, scissors mechanics correct. And so I could post the most OP one-shot rogue build, but it doesn't matter, because if everybody out there is running the counter to it on your server, you're just going to get pooped on anyways. Like, if everybody's running ragers with essentially detect mechanics, you're going to get killed anyways. And so you're going to be upset. You're going to be like, man, this YouTuber has bad content. He's posting bad builds. And it's like, no, this is what your environment is. You have to adjust to your environment.
Yep.
What you're saying about the different builds per region was really interesting with New World too, because early in the day I would watch wars because I played on US West, so I'd watch US West wars, US East, and then I would watch some EU wars. And dude, I would see guys with sword and board in the wars in US East, and no one in US was doing that. And I was like, are they on to something?
Dude, does anybody else get distracted by the Bob Ross in the background? I feel like I did not even grasp what they're talking about right now. I feel like I'm more interested in the Bob Ross than I am what they're saying. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, Burns, but I don't know. Like, I know no one does not use a webcam. He does not want to put himself out there. Totally understand that. So I love the Bob Ross, but I think the Bob Ross, at least for myself, is way too distracting. It's like the audio just sort of disperses and I just almost lose focus. Like, I don't know.
What's going on? It was really interesting to see that there were different metas in different regions. So yeah, exactly to your point, I would be surprised if that doesn't happen in Ashes.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's exactly true. I used to watch a few content creators that would talk about they would review wars, and like every time like an EU war came up, it was the exact same way. Everybody was in heavy armor, everybody was tanky, bulky, like stand on the point, and it was just so different. And it's not that it was bad, like we don't know, because like the EU players aren't playing NA players, we don't know which play style is better, but that's what became dominant there. And I think that dominant aspect in Ashes will carry over, where clerics may be dominant on one server or fighters on another, and it's just what the best players are choosing to play, and it's not necessarily.
Well, and I think that's going to be the interesting, and I've said this before too, so I'm sorry if for some of my regulars, I've said this before, but if there are clear strengths and weaknesses with classes, and you are using the meta on your rogue, because let's say clerics are your kryptonite, right? Clerics just give you a bad time as a rogue. And you're, forming a meta to like destroy clerics. Well, that could then mess you up, and there could be another class that becomes your cleric because you're specifically using the meta to go after this one singular class rather than being more like having the wider range of being viable to kill many classes. Yes, the cleric's going to be your hardest weakness, but now by you just trying to go after one class more could fuck you in other ways. You know what I mean? So I think that's going to be really interesting to see when it comes to the meta around Ashes of Creation's class design.
Necessarily the actual best classes.
Well, let me first start off and just say, in a perfect world, I would erase YouTube off the planet when it comes to guide content. And
you have to erase the internet off of the planet.
I don't think it will ruin Ashes as long as Intrepid knows what they need to limit. So I guess it all comes down to
me, look, I think the story is probably the thing that I really don't care about. Like, I don't care. I mean, I've never cared about MMO stories. When I played Final Fantasy 14, and everyone was like, oh, it's all about the story. I'm like, okay, cool. And that's all it focused on. So I got into it because that was the main focus. Loved the Final Fantasy 14 story. Playing SWTOR, it's very story centric. And for me, as a non-fanatical Star Wars person, I love the freaking Star Wars. Dude, it was probably one of the best Star Wars stories I've heard and seen ever. It was freaking amazing. So I think, I am totally fine with them having very vague quest text or, of course, no cinematics or anything like that. That's fine. But would I consider a biome a spoiler? No, not to me. As someone who signed up to test, I want to test the biome. I want to test the layouts of the biome. I want to test the quests in the biome. That's why I signed up. I signed up because I knew a lot of stuff was going to be spoiled to me, right? I think, again, there's a lot of people that constitute spoilers as something different, right? Because, again, I've talked to people that say, oh, I don't want to test that biome. I want it to, I don't want to get spoiled on what that biome looks like or what this looks like. I was like, today it's not really not much of a spoiler. It's a zone. It's a Like, who cares? Like, it's just a zone. Like, I think, again, people put too much emphasis into the whole spoilers talk. I think, really, to me, what a spoiler indicates in Ashes of Creation is lore, is the story. And I think they can keep that hush-hush just fine. I think testing this game is more important. And the fact that there's people that say we shouldn't test an entire continent worries me. Because there is a lot of quests on one continent. There's going to be probably the same amount of quests on the other. And to just say like, okay, we finished testing this one continent, that other continent during launch could be a complete clusterfuck, right? And so you think about this in the sense of like Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 Act 1 was almost a flawless act. But you know where the real pain points started to come through? On Acts 3 and 4. Because they were the least tested. I want to test this game. I want to test a lot of it, all the systems, everything I possibly can. I want it to be as the most polished MMO we can get at a launch. That's my goal. But to each their own.
What Intrepid allows YouTubers to mess with. I hope that they understand.
Knows what they need to limit. What are you saying? What do you think? What's something that they could or should limit during testing?
You know, maybe certain bosses maybe would be better kept to private testing. Certain transformations of the node.
Yes. Baldur's Gate was an alpha for years, and they only released 30% of all the content. So during the entire 3 years, all that you could play was Act 1. That's it. So that's why Act 1 was polished to all hell and back. And then there was issues, bugs in Act 2, and then in Act 3. And again, it's because they were still tested. It's not saying that they weren't tested. There was NDA tests for those acts. It just wasn't available for like the people of early access. Those things were tested, but they weren't as tested as Act 1. That's my point, is that I want to test. I want the Alpha 2 people to test like every zone, every node. Like, we got to test this shit. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it needs to be tested. Now, I've also said this too. If Intrepid is going to hire people to test Ashes, cool. Like, hire a professional tester house that does this for a living and test the whole zone if you want to. But again, that zone or that continent is probably going to have more bugs in it than the one that is tested by us. Because again, it's just going to sheer amount of numbers, right? So
I don't know into the Metropolis stage in Alpha 2, do you know?
Not at the start. I don't know about the end. That's a good question, but not at the start.
Maybe certain world events.
Let me see. Is there a certain kind of magic in Discovery when it goes live for the first time? Absolutely. But I signed up knowing that magic wasn't going to be there for me. Like, again, when I've talked to people who test games, a lot of shit is spoiled for you. And I'm not even talking about like story here. Like, you're going to know the professions. You're going to know certain recipes. You're going to like a lot of the shit is that's what you got to do though. You're a tester. You got to test, and the quests and tests and the classes and the combat and the abilities, like all this shit is going to be like spoiled for you. If you don't want to be spoiled, I'm sorry, but you probably shouldn't have bought a key, because shit is going to be spoiled in a certain sense. Maybe not story, but zones are going to be released. Quest lines are going to be released. The professions and the recipes are going to be released. If you had a kind of trepidation about testing Ashes of Creation because you wanted the sense of discovery, well, then what you're going to have to do if you did buy a key is to be very narrow in your testing. And don't go out, don't look at anything, don't watch YouTube videos, don't do this, because that's what you wanted. So, again, no one forced you to buy a key. And also, no one's forcing you to test. So, if that is of value to you, then I would have recommended not to even buy the Alpha 2. I would have told you to wait till the launch of this game. But it was your decision. And with those decisions come certain responsibilities and also some consequences. Oh, once something is out, it's going to be known and talked about in the game general community. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mag, dude, what's going on, man? Great to see you, dude.
Certain story-related events. I don't really know. I'd have to think about that a little bit deeper. But once again, just thinking, I keep bringing up Baldur's Gate 3, but thinking back on that, Larian limited the content. And even though things early on in the game could have been spoiled. The majority of the game wasn't spoiled when it actually released. When the game actually releases, well, I mean, you better be on things fast. Otherwise, yeah, YouTubers are going to spoil it. I hate that.
If you're playing Ashes of Creation only for exploring, then obviously don't watch AOC content online. But if you want to play the game long term, then it's fair to prepare if efficiency is desired. Absolutely. But you just got to know what you're getting yourself into. I think, again, if you wanted to sign up to be a tester and then you're also saying the same breath, well, I don't want to test everything, we got to leave some stuff up. It's like, well, no, that's not traditionally how tests of these kind of calibers work, right? Again, I'm not talking story here. I'm talking mostly like the systems. You got to test the systems.
But it is what it is. So,
will Ashes be ruined by min-maxers?
No, it'll be made better by min-maxers. And that's simply
that's
because
a good question.
min-maxers, they're the ones that break the game. They're the ones that find the really nasty stuff that are going to make your life miserable. And if they're a good min-maxer, they'll probably make a video about it and say, oh, if you want to pwn the nudes, this is what you got to do. And then, Intrepid will see it and they'll nerf it. Min-maxers, they figure out what works. Okay, everybody says, oh, guides are dumb. I don't need some website telling me how to play the game. Well, there's a whole lot of people that really rely on those stuff because they don't have the time, or they don't have the stomach to sit down and figure out what works. They just want to be told what to do. And
let me see. I've been lurking. You started at my gym time tonight. Very much agree. If you're a tester, you aren't going to be to have the luxury of not seeing things. As a former QA, if you aren't testing everything, you aren't testing effectively. Great point. If you're going to play Ashes for exploring, wait until release. There isn't a ton with it right now with limited area. Absolutely. And again, like, you can still test, just stay in the Riverlands. You're already spoiled on the Riverlands. We've seen the Riverlands in every single live stream, basically. So stay in the Riverlands, test combat, test abilities, test talent trees, test professions, but just only stay in the Riverlands. And once more biomes start opening up towards, of course, the end of Alpha 2, don't go there. Don't go and test over there. Still get feedback on, the changes to the classes, updates to talent trees, updates to the systems, to nodes, to quest lines, to whatever, professions, gathering, processing, crafting. You can still be a valuable tester and stay in the Riverlands the entire time. But I still believe that we need testers in the other biomes, in the other areas, because there's going to be different quest lines, there's going to be different systems, different interactions, and those things still need to be tested.
And that's perfectly okay. We've all done it. Everybody I know has looked at a guide to teach them how to play something or do something. It's all happened.
Yep.
There's a lot of players that rely on that, and that's what the min-maxers are for. Like, there's a guy who he's a PvPer named Zaryu. I don't know if you've ever seen Zaryu stream.
Oh, the mage in WoW.
He's one of the best PvPers out there.
He is.
And he literally has 12-hour streams of New World, just standing outside Winstead, dueling all day long, just dueling the same guy. He's a fire mage. All he did was play Pyro and Ice Gauntlet for the longest time. That's all he played. And he would literally duel the same guy with a bow and arrow and a spear for 12 hours, figuring out, like, okay, let me switch one single talent point and we'll duel with that for 3 hours. Those are the guys you need, because they will figure out what works, what doesn't work, what needs to be nerfed, what needs to be buffed. The min-maxers are who balance your game. It's not Intrepid.
Yep.
Intrepid just punches in the numbers once everybody else has figured it out. So it's impossible for min-maxers to ruin the game. It might look bad because the way social media works and the internet and, all these guides are going to go out. It might look bad to some players, but you need those guys.
I think people, when they refer to min-maxers, they don't like the idea expressed on themselves of min-maxing, right? Because if you're that kind of player that casually likes to play your own personal set of talent choices, your own abilities or whatever, and it isn't the meta or isn't the way to play, but you find a very good enjoyment, or you just love those abilities or love your personal gameplay style or whatever. Again, this is why I always say, join a guild that doesn't give a fuck. Like, this is, again, I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you are a person that is that casual or that doesn't like to be beholden to the meta play style, then join a guild that doesn't uphold to the meta mind style either. and go and play with those people. What I don't like is that person going into a guild that is very meta mindseted, that is very mid-maxing oriented, and you want to poo-poo on those players and get mad at those players because they're not letting you in their raid anymore, because those people get the shit done. Those people kill bosses, and you're wanting to play not up to their level of efficiency, so they don't invite you. And then you get mad. Oh, it's because, people have this min-maxing mindset, and I'm just here to kind of just enjoy the game and have fun. And it's just like, well, that's their way of having fun too. Why don't you try to find a guild that has that same mentality you have? And why is it that you're always getting mad at those players? Like, that's my thing. Like, you have to find people that are at your level of mindset. That's all you got to do. And once you find that, your overall gameplay experience is going to be heightened 3x, 5x better because of it.
Doing the work that you don't want to do.
No, I think so. For this question, there's a lot of different types of people who play games different types of ways. Just like there is in a lot of things, and I'm mainly thinking of sports. So I'm thinking of like those really high level sports athletes, and like I'm sure they're mid-maxers with the way they do their routine and their diet and all these things, and like they go places because they are that way, but it doesn't make my workout in the gym any less substantial, like, because it's all personal for me. It's my personal goals and stuff. It doesn't matter that this person is an Olympic.
Well, and breakfast time, that's where a damage meter comes in, right? If you're talking about damage, right? Like, I've seen people stray off of the meta or off of the build guide, and they're going in, they're doing something radical, and they're like, holy shit, like, what are you doing? Your damage is insane. Again, a meta mindseted player, a min-maxer, doesn't give a shit about what your build is. It could be contrastically completely different than theirs. They just want you to play at a high level. That's ultimately what a min-maxer is, right? A min-maxer is trying to play the game at a high level. That is the point of min-maxing. So if you can play at a high level with a different build, they ultimately don't care. They just want you to put in as much effort into the damage set as they are. That's it. And when you're just casually, pushing some buttons and occasionally hitting one and then two, or, oh shit, what did I do? I hit a button. Did you guys see where I left off? Because I know I did. Hold on.
Because the way social media works and the internet and, all these guides are going to go out.
High level sports athletes, and like I'm sure they're mid-maxers with the way they do their routine and their diet and all these things, and like they go places because they are that way, but it doesn't make
basically just filling my thought. You're just casually pushing buttons because you don't treat the game as serious, because it's just a fun experience for you to go to a raid and do stuff, right? So your rotation and your execution and talent points, whatever, isn't that big a deal to you, right? You're doing damage. Like, and again, you could have fun and do that with players that are also in that same mindset. But if you're above the tank in damage, that's a problem to min-maxers. That's a problem to people that are trying to play at a higher level. And there's some min-maxers that honestly don't mind carrying. And if it's a guild or a group that doesn't mind carrying, cool. Like, I know right now, like in our raid right now, like Lude Lloyd, he just started playing World of Warcraft. He's never played WoW before, and he's doing quite well. I mean, he's not pulling the crazy numbers, but again, as a complete beginner, we're carrying him a little bit, and it's fine because he still has the mindset of wanting to be better. And when he's asked to do mechanics, he does them, and he contributes to the raid. And again, like, that's all it is. He's not complaining or being like, oh my God, like, meta, blah, 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 blah. Like, it doesn't work that way, right? So, dude, Tark, what's going on, man? Good to see you, buddy. Let me see. So when all of your friends are refusing to learn meta farming, just know me and the hardcore PvPers will be power grinding to full power individually and societally. He's been progressing really well. I'm impressed. Yeah, no, I know. And again, like, I think when it comes to the whole meta mindset, like, people just want to play with people that are at a level of skill. That's it. And I think people always get offended when you're like, but I am a good player. And they're like, well, by the numbers, you're not, and then people get all offended and stuff.
My workout in the gym any less substantial, like, because it's all personal for me. You know, it's my
Basically,
personal
find your crowd in
goals
the
and
end.
stuff. It
Exactly.
doesn't matter that
Just
this
find your
person is
people.
an Olympic athlete somewhere in the world because they put in the work. But I think with a video game, there definitely are people like that, but they're few and far between, and I can't see a way that them playing the game that way would necessarily ruin my experience other than them just being better at the game than I am.
Yeah. Well, and Annie brings up an insanely good point too. Like, imagine if, you know, min-maxing when it comes to swimming. And I'm just a casual, you know, swimmer, right? But I want to go out for the Olympics. But I want the Olympics to adhere to me because I think I'm a good swimmer. And then you have these people that are training like, you know, 8 hours a day, and, you know, eating well and doing that stuff. But I'm not doing that stuff. I treat swimming as like a casual thing. Like I would be laughed out of the room. Like, what are we talking about here? Clearly, I do enjoy swimming, but they enjoy swimming to a way higher level. So why am I trying to change the min-maxing of effectively swimming or doing like competition stuff like that because it appeases to me? Like, it doesn't work that way. So
will ashes be ruined by min-maxers?
No, I don't think so. As I sort of just spoke about with the guides and stuff like that, I don't think min-maxing is really the thing that ruins games. The potential for min-maxing is the thing that potentially ruins the game. If you've designed your game in a way where min-maxing is that strong, then that's the problem. It's not the people doing it, because people are going to do that anyway. All that like YouTubes and stuff will do is share that information around equally. It's the game that's the issue, and how quickly you decide to then rebalance the game, and how quickly the meta can then be found again. Those are the things that are going to be the main questions. I don't think a meta, the existence of a meta, really ruins games. All games pretty much out there right now have a meta. I don't know a single game that doesn't. Maybe somebody.
But in your example, the Olympics nerf certain min-maxes because they break honest competition. For example, there's a swimmer that was invented that got banned because it gave. There was a swimmer that was invented. Oh, swimwear. Sorry, I was saying swimmer. Swimwear that was invented that got banned because it gave such a min-max advantage. Yeah, and again, Intrepid is, again, with these min-maxers, they're going to find certain stuff out, and they're going to play, and Intrepid is going to be like, no. We don't like that. That's actually too much power than we intended. We're nerfing it. But is the game, like, to the question, are min-maxers going to ruin the game? No. I don't think they are. Like, I think it still stands. Like, it's still up to Intrepid whether that level of power is good for them or if it isn't good for them. Just like the Olympics. There's a certain swimmer that's giving people like a certain min-max advantage. We don't like that. We want people to kind of be on equal footing there. Cool. Same thing's going to go in Ashes of Creation. Intrepid is God, basically. If they want something to be nerfed, they will nerf it. If they want something to be buffed, they will buff it. Yeah, IRL balancing. I like it. Yeah, exactly.
In the comments we'll know, but League of Legends have a meta. WoW has a meta. Are they ruined because of that? I don't necessarily think so, but maybe some people do.
Will ashes be ruined by min-maxers?
I don't think min-maxing ruins the game. And I mean, going into Ashes, like, you're basing this off a game that's coming from like a Throne and Liberty audience, an Arcade audience, a Lineage audience, and like those are min-max games. You're Zerg rushing, you're trying to get the best stats, you're trying to get everything you possibly can out of these games, and some of them you.
Yeah, I think when the concepts of balancing were regarding massive organization, exactly, which means to me CC and mass AOE. Those to me are probably going to be the two major culprits of nerfs, or things that are min-maxing at a point that Intrepid doesn't like, right? So I think that's where ultimately things will be adjusted quite greatly. Will be regarding more of the game, like the major, like world kind of gameplay.
You pay thousands of dollars to get everything out of these games, but I think that's the type of audience that Ashes of Creation is catering towards, and I don't necessarily think it's going to ruin the game. I think the game is going to keep that in mind as they continue to go through development and have systems in place that either help reduce the min-maxing or encourage it.
No, I don't think so. I don't think you can. It all. So I'm gonna push the blame off onto YouTubers and min-maxers, and I'm gonna push it on to Intrepid. My perspective is if they get the rock paper scissors mechanics right, where there are hard counters to specific playstyles, min-maxing a specific build, sure, it may become more popular. It may populate the world for a while. People will then build hard counters to that specific build. Like, hey, 40% of players I'm running across are fighters. What's the counter to a fighter? How can I counter this build since I'm seeing it all the time? And that's how the meta will balance itself out. Like, players will pick and choose counters. They'll pick and choose things to shore up their weaknesses based off of what they're fighting. And so a min-max of one specific build isn't going to change things in this game potentially in the same way it would others.
I don't think so.
Completely agree with no one.
And I'm veering that way because of the game's group content, and a lot of content revolves around having a large player base around, and I think that could probably, make the min-maxers not as important, I guess you could say, or a player that's not min-maxing can still fit into that equation somewhere, versus a more small scale game where everything's, like 2v2 arenas or something like that. Something like that, I think min-maxers, I don't know if they would ruin it, but it would definitely be something that you'd have to do. I'm thinking no, because I don't know if it will be different than most other games out there that have made it work.
That's an interesting point, because the scope is so broad. I mean, there's large scale PvE, there's large scale PvP, there's small scale PvE, there's small scale PvP. Like, there will be a niche for many different builds. So the fact that someone's min-maxing one of those builds, yeah, that makes sense. That it doesn't, that let's say you're not min-maxing, your large scale PvP build, but you still might be really effective in all these other scenarios as well.
I think one good way to represent my opinion would be there's going to be so many variables in this game that min-maxing isn't necessarily always going to be the most important thing. So much going on, so many players, so many world events, so many unknowns coming together in the open world that players don't necessarily always have to min-max. But if you want to take things seriously and get...
I think min-maxing is going to be to a niche objective. What are you trying to min-max? What are you trying to have the meta around? Because, again, there could be things that could mess you up, right? There's going to be some pros and cons by using the meta in this very specific way, right? Whether that's for the large-scale PvE content that can then mess you up for PvP content, and vice versa. So, or towards a specific class could mess you up towards other classes. There isn't going to be a one size fits all approach, or there's not going to be this thing that's going to be safe all around. And I think if there is, it's going to be very mediocre, which should be, right? Because you're using this all encompassing, covering all the bases kind of thing, right? So you shouldn't really excel at anything, but you should be effective at least.
More competitive with certain aspects, then I guess it's probably going to be pretty important.
Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for scenes from next episode. You can customize your character with choosing from 40 abilities, a secondary archetype, the schools of magic in your secondary archetype, your religion, your racial augments. Is there too much class customization?
I think the more customization there is, the better.
Well, you ever seen the skill tree in Path of Exile?
For balancing, I think it'll be a problem.
It's not going to appeal to a casual player.
The more simplified things become, the easier it is for people to just follow a guide.
And then for other people like myself, a lot of the time, I'll just...
Great freaking video. Well, you know the drill. If you want to go and sub to my boy Burns, he makes amazing content like this. Give it a like. Go sub to his content. So... Okay. So I'm going to be streaming this Friday at my usual time. Probably going to be like 7. I might stream a little earlier. It just depends. We're planning to go out of town this weekend. So it depends. So of course, if you're not following me on Twitch and YouTube, hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button, I'll keep you up to date anytime I go live. But yeah, I'm going to start, I'm currently in the process of making a video right now. That video should be out hopefully by next week. So, content's going to start ramping. I'm going to start getting my content juices a-flowing. And, you know, it's going to be quite exciting. I can't believe we're finally, we're finally already getting, this game. Like, I feel like we've waited for so long, and it's like, is it really happening this month? Like, I have dreams of like getting up my mom on the computer. I open up X or on Twitter, and then all of a sudden, you know, Steven or Ashes of Creation Twitter is like, we're sad to announce that Ashes of Creation's Alpha 2 is no longer on October 25th. You know, I don't know. Like, I still have these nightmares of like, delay, you know, hopefully it's not going to happen. But it's just really hard to believe that, you know, we're this close already, right? We're just a couple more weeks away. I'm going to roll out. Love the discussion and coverage value. Thank you so much, Bergen. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you. It's great to see you. But yeah, it's wild. Oh, it's happening. An Art of War enjoyer, I see. So, yeah, that's going to be happening. I'm excited. I really have nothing else to say other than just thank you guys so much for watching. I just wanted to stream today because I felt like I had to get caught up with like, I wanted to talk about this whole CC thing because I'm like, okay, I got to talk about that. And then of course had the 2 Burns videos I wanted to watch. There was like another video I wanted to watch too, but I got to dip out. Guys, thank you all so much. Oh, I will hydrate myself before I go. Thank you. And like I said, you know the drill. Hit the follow button if you're not following. Hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed. Let's see. Is there anybody in the Ashes category right now? Is anybody doing Ashes things? I don't have my usual peeps on. Oh. I don't see anybody on. Wait, Pockets is on? He is on. Okay. Let's go raid Pockets. He's always been a really good dude to me and always been very, very, very supportive. Why didn't he show up on my thing? I know him. Do not follow Pockets. Where the hell? There we go.